What is going on, everybody? I am back today to talk about a movie that has been out for a little while now. And to be quite honest, I wasn't super excited to watch this movie because the trailer was pretty bad. It didn't get me excited for the film. It was pretty poorly put together. Despite that, though, I did enjoy the first two films in this series. I think the Quiet Place films, despite their flaws and having to suspend your disbelief about a lot of things, I really like the character development in those films. I really appreciate the suspense that's built. They're fun theater going films that I enjoyed both of. And despite my hesitation about watching this movie, I'm a huge fan of Lupita Nyong'o. I think she is an incredibly talented actress who, in everything I've seen her in throughout her entire career, I've just been blown away by her performances. No matter what the material is, she is just an incredible actress who does so much through her facial expressions and her bodily movements. And she does such a great job with her dialogue delivery. She's just an amazing actress. And so I wanted to check that movie out for this very reason. So I waited for it to become available on VOD. And today I'm going to be talking about A Quiet Place Day One with you. A Quiet Place Day One is directed by Michael Sarnoski. As New York City is invaded by alien creatures who hunt by sound, a woman named Sam fights to survive. So, as I said, I wasn't super excited to watch this movie, but I did get a little bit more excited when I figured out it was directed by Michael Sarnoski, who directed the film Pig with Nicolas Cage, which I think is an absolutely incredible movie that more people need to watch. And if there's one word I would use to describe this film, it's fine. It's entertaining. It does a lot of the same things that the two other Quiet Place movies do. It does have a really solid emotional core in moments, but I do think it's relatively bloated. I think that some of the action sequences are less enthralling and engaging than others. And while I had a fun time, it's not necessarily something I would see myself going to revisit over and over again. And I'll talk about that as I break the movie down. So at the beginning of the film, we are introduced to Sam, played by Lupita Nyong'o, who we find out is a terminal cancer patient. And she is living at this hospital, and she does this like introduction at the beginning. They're like playing this game, and she's very like sadistic and dark humored in a way that's really funny. I loved her delivery of her lines in that early scene. We learn a little bit more about her day-to-day life in this hospital, and we're introduced to Ruben, played by Alex Wolff, who is one of the leaders of the wing of the hospital, who says, hey, we're going to go out today and see this marionette show. And she's like kind of put off by it, but she says, hey, can we go get pizza since we're going to be nearby this pizza place I love? And he's like, absolutely, we'll go get pizza as soon as we're done. And so she reluctantly agrees to go. So they go to this marionette show, and while they're there, the aliens from this franchise attack, and they start killing people off one by one, and Sam escapes from this theater. Well, it's her and her cat. They're running through the streets of New York together. Eventually, they run into Eric, played by Joseph Quinn, who a lot of people know from Stranger Things, and he is a law student from the UK in America by himself. He has no family, no one there with him, and so the two of them together spend the movie running away from these aliens, where Sam's one and only goal is to get a slice of pizza from her favorite pizza restaurant if there's some left there and it hasn't been destroyed. So as I said, this movie was fine. I thought it had some really entertaining moments, but I also didn't finish it and think, wow, that's a really great installment in this franchise. It was more or less like I had a good time with it, but it's sort of forgettable. I will say Lupita Nyong'o's performance here is incredible. I feel like any sequence here that she has to do a lot with her facial expressions or her bodily movements. She just does such a phenomenal job at drawing your attention in as a viewer and really just moving you emotionally. And there are so many sequences of just like sheer terror that she's experiencing that you can just really feel it. She has very expressive eyes, and I just think that she is such a talented actress, and I love seeing her in movies, and I thought she was really great here. I also really liked Joseph Quinn in this movie. I think he had really fantastic chemistry with Lupita Nyong'o's character, and the two of them complement each other really well in different scenes. They both come from very different worlds. They both are living life relatively differently, but they pick each other up in a moment that's like really devastating, where there is no certainty for the future, but Lupita Nyong'o knows she's a terminal cancer patient, She only has so long to survive anyway. And Eric's character is just like, I want to get back home to England to my family. And so it's a really interesting dynamic that's created. I like the creature design in these movies. They're not my favorite by any means, but I do think that like they have a towering, menacing quality that makes them very frightening. There's a lot of really great sequences here where obviously in the two previous films, the characters already know how these creatures operate. And so much of the movie is trying to stay quiet, trying to stay safe, and obviously they live in a much more isolated area away from the big city. This movie is kind of turning it on its head by putting it in one of the loudest and busiest cities in the entire world, dropping you here where no one really knows how these creatures work until we get information fed to us through the military people that are flying overhead. And so they're trying to stay as quiet as possible, but when you're in this really condensed place with a lot of stuff that could be knocked over or falling down, or you can trip over something, any of these little things, it adds a lot of danger for the characters. And there are some sequences that I think are really solid that they utilize the whole idea of sound to their benefit. But the problem I have with this movie is it's very similar to the two original films where it's just someone goes into a space, hits up against something and then has to run. And it just feels like it gets very cyclical and very predictable. And I don't think that I would have felt the same way if this was the first movie in the franchise, if I didn't know anything about this series. But I feel like there's got to be a way to either like make this franchise fresh and exciting by not just doing more of the same. It's a big complaint that I have with Alien. I really like the Alien movies. I have a lot of fun with Alien, and I think the original Alien is one of the greatest films of all time. I even like Fincher's Alien 3. I think it's really like devastating and heartbreaking and really underrated in that franchise. But the problem with that series of films is it's people running down a hallway away from an alien. There's not a whole lot more that you can do with that franchise. It's a cat and mouse game, and so a lot of those films start to feel incredibly repetitive. There are fun moments in them, but they're not all super memorable. The thing here with A Quiet Place is we've done this song and dance before, and what they do to try to add more emotional push and pull is giving the lead character terminal cancer, so that way you can have something really heavy to pull at your viewers' heartstrings with when other things in the film aren't working. And then you add a cute little animal also to pull at the audience's heartstrings when other things aren't working in the movie's favor. And it's not to say you can't do something like that. I totally understand where the director is coming from. But a lot of the emotional moments towards the third act, while I think that they're solid, they just feel like they come in at that particular moment to kind of push you as an audience member to feel something, because the characters, they can't really talk much in the movie. So there's not a lot of ability to reveal a ton of information about either one of these characters. And there's a lot of runtime in this that just feels kind of slow and bland and uninteresting compared to the first two films, which I feel like are relatively streamlined and are successful because they get to the point and they're paced out a little bit better. And I think that isolation of that setting honestly works in the film's benefit because the sound design for the most part is so quiet. In this movie, it's much more bombastic, which is cool to kind of turn it on its head, but it didn't work perfectly for me. And I know a lot of people have really liked this movie, and I enjoyed it. I had fun with it. I think there's some moments that are really solid, but I don't really see myself being super compelled to revisit this one in the future. So have you seen A Quiet Place day one? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought this movie was entertaining, but it definitely is flawed. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.